Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the virtual CMA class. We wanted to bring to you this, this type of a class so that folks get comfortable with using Zoom and speaking to their clients over that platform. Terry and I developed this for you folks, and we're happy to take questions either after the tips piece of this or after the role playing. Again, please feel free to go ahead and chat in your questions. Karen's going to watch those for us and get those to us. So this is really the second step in a two-part presentation, listing presentation. And so this is because of the times we're in with COVID-19 and the environment with which we find ourselves working, we thought it would be helpful for everyone to take a look at a different way of getting the information over to the consumer. So it makes the assumption that you have sent a pre-listing ebook to your clients or customers for them to take a peek at, for them to look at what we have to offer, and that you are then able to address any questions they may have. And then this ends up being really step two, is so that they've gone through the home with you via Zoom or FaceTime, and they walk through the home so you can see the condition of the home, you can see some of the enhancements of the home, and some of the recent repairs or updates that they have done. And you are now ready to go ahead and send them or compile the information so you have a CMA for them. So just some tips prior to doing this video, this section of it. So again, it assumes that you've sent out a pre-listing packet at least 24 hours in advance of your CMA. You have your CMA and marketing pieces open and ready and to share or refer to during this. Because one of the things you want to do is get smooth with the transition from one document to the next, so that the customer sees that competence with which you are able to operate. So again, we'd ask anybody joining us to go ahead and mute themselves. Chat in any questions that you have so that we can move through this in 20 or 30 minutes. Thank you very much. The third tip I have is reorder your CMA in Toolkit. So one of the things that we do is we have 5 or 6 pages to our CMA typically, and in there somewhere is buried a price adjustment page. And I recommend that you reorder your CMA presentation toolkit so that the price adjustment page falls to the very bottom, so that you can trim that off before you make a presentation. And then the other is that you move up the actual pricing to the second page, which would be right after your contact page. So that's the very first thing you talk about. Over the years, giving a listing presentation and talking about the CMA, I quickly discovered that the consumer really wants is to know what their price is, right? They're ready for the price. They don't want to sit through a preamble on the second meeting. They want to know what you came up with. So I found that starting with that page actually helps guide the conversation through the rest of it and how you develop that pricing. So reorder it so you have your contact page, then you have your price range that you've come up with, followed by how you develop that. And then at the bottom of that, you'll see that I have added some of our marketing pieces for COVID-19 and how we operate in today's world. So then as we go down this page, and I'll be happy to share any of this information with you, add your COVID-19 showing information at the last pages. And this is really to show your competency and professionalism in the current marketplace. Make sure you mute your phone before you begin, and I'll do that now so it's not a distraction, just like you would if you were sitting at their table. Also make sure that when you're scrolling, you scroll slowly through your pages. We have a tendency to move pretty quickly, and it's hard when you're doing a Zoom for your consumer to watch you scroll too quickly. In fact, can make some folks dizzy. So be careful of your movement in there. And then after your meeting is after your meeting is over, if you typically leave the CMA with the customer, follow up with an email and attach that CMA. I would follow up with an email regardless, just to thank them for the time. But if you leave the CMA at the table, typically you'll want to attach it to that thank you email so they have that. If they don't, you don't need to. So follow what your comfort level is there. Okay. Karen, do we have any chats at this point?
I'm sorry, hold on.
I don't think we did, but let's double check. 0 chats. No chats.
Thank you very much. All right, so Teri has been kind enough to act as my seller, and we're going to go right into a role play here. And again, chat in any questions. Karen will watch those for us, and we will handle all chats and questions at the conclusion of the role playing. So Teri and I will hopefully graciously and gracefully slip right into that role play now. Karen Lemire, if you could go ahead and mute yourself so we don't have any feedback, that would be most helpful.
Well, I said one question, and I would put it in the chat, but I'm just going to say it. Is there a way, can you maximize your page there, or is that all? Would it see more if it was maximized?
So that's all I have. This is hence the comment about scrolling slowly so that folks can pick up on all of that. There's another tool that you can use in this, but it's hard to add pages to that. When you create a presentation in Toolkit CMA, you can actually do one that is more like a PowerPoint presentation, but it doesn't allow you to add the pages. So if you're going to use that, only the pages that are created, then you'd be able to use that, and it would give you a different view. So I agree with you, Karen. That view is a little fussy, if you will. Okay. So Teri, are you ready?
I am.
All right. So Teri, thank you very much for joining me today on the call. And in these unusual times we find ourselves, that you made yourself available and are willing to do this via Zoom. I have some information to you today, as we talked about, that you know, you walked through the house with me on FaceTime, and I've been able to see your beautiful home. And all the updates that you've done and enhancements to it. So what I've done is I've compiled all that information as well as with the marketplace information, and have come up with now a nice range that we can discuss and see what your comfort level is in pricing your home. So now I have my number in black and white and in print, which is just below the level of the screen that you can see here. So I thought maybe I'd ask you at this point what you thought the value of your home is at this point.
Well, we've been looking at the neighbor's house down the street, and it's similar to ours. We have some more bells and whistles. We have the above ground pool that's only 2 years old. We have our landscaping is much better, and we put the generator in. After looking at it, we think maybe $435,000.
Okay. Great, I'll just write that down. So 435, and so we took note of all of those enhancements as well. And so when we developed pricing, all of those were included in the range that we came up with. And I have for you today the range that we developed, and that price range actually fits in perfectly with yours. So on the low end is 420,000 to 445. Okay. So some of the way that the price ranges work, and I'll go into how we develop that in just a minute, but so some of how that worked is, you know, we talk about everybody in today's marketplace. Of course, actually, when you're talking to a seller, right, we want to maximize the amount that we can sell our home for. And so when we talk about that 445, we start to get to the edge of where, you know, we might run into some appraisal issues. We may not get as many showings or inquiry as we want. And so we do like to put that, that price somewhere in the middle of that range instead of going all the way to the top of that range. And so for this one, I would actually, in mind with what you're saying that you were hoping to get 435 for it, my recommended price on this would be 439.9. And let me show you how we develop that price. So as we get down a little bit here, we have the information that we put in about your home and some of those features that are there. We picked up the whole house generator, the central air that you have, the 2-car attached garage, the hardwood floors, and we put all of that together, and we started to take a look at where the properties are in the area. And so as you'll note that most of these properties are grouped right here in a close little group close to the shore. And then we had a couple that were back here as well. And those were appropriate to include because the neighborhood and the style of that neighborhood is very similar to what we have here in your neighborhood. And so we did feel like we needed to include those, although then when we did take a look at those, because of your proximity to the water, there's a little adjustment that we like to do, to an upward adjustment, so that, because we realize that they're a little bit further back. Okay. And so these, now you start to see some of the address of the homes that we used. And now as we get down through the paperwork here, we're starting to see some of the homes that were on the market that we use as comparison. And I'm sure that you'll recognize some of these addresses. And these are currently on the market and under contract. And we like to use these because these really show as some of your competition, right? This is what will be competitive for your home currently on the market. And you'll see here that the list price on this one is just under that $445, and it has been on the market for that 37 days. And that is very important, because in today's marketplace, we want to make sure that we are minimizing the days on market while we maximize your price. And so if we can get those, drive those days down as much as possible, then we can get a quicker sale for you, and hopefully even a multiple offer situation. So we'd be looking to get that $439.9 that we talked about, and have days on market that may be just under this one, whereas this is pretty close to your home. Any questions about why we use the currently on the market?
No, it's right down the street. So,
okay.
I understand.
Great. And if everybody one more time could mute themselves, that would be most helpful. We are getting some feedback.
So I'll ask Robin how to proceed with that. I know that
we do have someone that's speaking in the background. If I could go ahead and get you to mute yourself, that would be most helpful.
Because I know, like, I have a few agents right now that have listings that are going to just be.
Donna, can you mute yourself for us, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. Found her. All right, so sorry for the interruption, folks. See, you just have to be flexible with these things. You never know what's going to happen when you're doing a Zoom or a FaceTime. So then the next one here is an interesting property on 117 Pointed Fur Boulevard. It actually is right in your neighborhood, right down the street from yours. And you can see now that this home is actually priced at $459 and has been on the market for 189 days. So I can tell you that this one actually has taken a price reduction. So they missed the market as far as pricing goes with this one. And now it's lingering on the market for longer than what is typical in our area for days on market. We're somewhere around the 72 days. And this one now is starting to make that average go up because they missed the market with the price point. And so that gets to that, back to that discussion we had earlier when we were talking in FaceTiming regarding your house about the importance of hitting that price right exactly where it needs to be on the market, so we inspire the right amount of interest and showings, and ultimately get to the point where we can force a multiple offer situation, and as well as don't have any issues with our appraisal. Any questions with any of those, Terry?
No, no.
So now we'll get to the meat of our comparables here, and these are the ones that have recently sold. So as you can see, this one here, this is one of the homes that's a little further away from the water, sold it was listed at $399 and at a sales price of $376.5, and was on that market right in that sweet spot of 29 days. And we've given some extra credit here because, again, they were up away from the water, which is all important here in the Wells area. And now you'll see that this one here was listed at the $449.9 and actually sold it right where we're talking about for yours at that $439.9, and that days on market is well within that average of 70 days. And then this last one here is at that sold at that $450, and it had also had to have a price reduction because this is also on the market for 130 to 34 days. So you can see where that pricing now becomes all important to get your home price correctly so that we can maximize the days on market as well as your price. Okay, so I just have some graphs here I wanted to show you. This is a graph that has those under contracts, the two that we had. And then this includes the solds, which end up being even more important because it adds that statistic for us. So the blue is sold and the green are on the market or under contract. And so you can now see where that average price point is, that 422. And the days on market is that 77 we were talking about. Also important here ends up being this average sales price to list price of 96%. So that really means that for those homes that were priced a little bit higher and sold a little lower, we're selling those homes at 96% of the list price. And so we like to see that between 96 and 98. And of course, the closer that gets to 100% means the more those multiple offers actually work. Any questions before I go into the next piece of this? And really, we're going to get to the heart of how we're going to show your home in the environment that we find ourselves today.
Well, we're not in any hurry to move. I mean, we'd like to be gone by winter, but we're not in a hurry. So, you know, we were actually thinking that we would list higher and just see what happens.
So, and I certainly understand that. Of course, you want to maximize what you're making for your home when you do sell that. And so as you can see from the paperwork that we've just gone through and some of the comps, how long those have actually been sitting on the marketplace. And as those homes that are overpriced sit on the marketplace, they actually will then have a tendency to have buyers think, okay, what's wrong with that property? The buyer today actually has more access than ever to information on the marketplace, and they can go out and they can see that what the value of your home could be if it were priced right. And so with access to that information, they're not even going out and asking for information on these homes that are overpriced and then are now languishing on the marketplace. So I would encourage you that when you're ready to go ahead and list your home, you list it on the marketplace for that right price, that really use that smart pricing out there to price it right so that it moves, it doesn't languish out there. And so as far as, you know, of course you get to pick the price and the time frame that you want to go ahead and list your home. Now is a perfect time to do that. And let me explain a little bit what's happening in the marketplace. So in the marketplace today is we have pent up demand from buyers out there. So we've got a pool of buyers. And if those houses are priced right on the market price, those buyers move towards, it's almost like a flock of birds going to that home to see that property and see if that will check off enough of the boxes of what they want in their next home. And once that happens and they have checked that off, then we're inspiring those multiple offers to come in. As those multiple offers happen, it starts to drive up the home. So in today's marketplace, with the inventories at relatively low levels, we want to make sure that we get every home on the market as quickly as we can so we can maximize that pricing. So my crystal ball, personally, works for about a week or two out. I can't see much beyond that. And so I don't know what your time frame really is, but I have no idea what the marketplace will be doing much beyond that week or two, especially in today's environment. So if you're thinking about a June, July, or August time to actually go and list your home, we actually would want to refresh this CMA, this opinion of value for you, so we can see what the marketplace is doing at that point in time when you are ready. But I would encourage you to price it right when you do go on the market so that it doesn't languish and increase those days on market. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. We're at this point, we're not even sure that we want to list with everything going on and the virus, and we're thinking we might want to wait it out.
So I certainly understand that. Let's jump into how we're actually going to manage all of that and see if that helps with some of your concerns in that area. Shall we?
Sure.
Great. Okay, so I've done some flyers here so that we can get really ready for your home and putting it on the marketplace. And you know, I know that you're looking to sell now. Really, let's see if we can't find the right time for you to sell. Okay, and again, we talk about that limited inventory that we have on the marketplace and that pent-up buyer demand that's out there. So what we're going to do is really talk about where these 6 steps on how we're going to make your home safe and also safe for you. So for the buyers as well as you, the owners of the home. So we're asking that the buyers now do the majority of their shopping online, which over the last few years have been really the trend, as our buyers have become more intelligent with their shopping online, and they've been able to narrow down the number of homes that they actually see. Now we're asking them to do that even more, and as a buyer agent, we'll actually do a number of those showings virtually for them until they narrow maybe 6 homes down to 1 or 2 homes. Okay, and so we'll ask those buyers to shop online, then we'll do some virtual walkthroughs until we get that down to 1 or 2 homes, and obviously we'd like to have your home in that 1 or 2 range. And we're going to ask that you open all the doors and the drawers in the home for that showing. So once we have a buyer that is determined that that home is the one they want to go, your home is the one they want to go into, that we're going to actually schedule a showing with you, 24-hour notice, and we're going to say tomorrow at noontime, our buyers would like to come in and see the home. We're going to ask you to open all the doors in the home so no one is touching doorknobs, and a few of the drawers and a couple of the cabinets so they can see the quality of your home. All right, we'd ask you to turn on all the lights in the home. And then as you're doing that, we're also talking to the buyers to ensure that we've pre-screened them. We want to make sure that they're pre-qualified with a lender. And we want to make sure that we're asking some questions. And again, these are very specific to the times we find ourselves in, that they're not feeling sick or showing any signs of illness. Okay, we're not taking any chances. We'll also make sure that we're minimizing the exposure to these homes, and we're asking the decision makers only to be the ones that go to the showing. So if Mr. and Mrs. Buyer are the 2 that are going to be on the purchase and sale agreement, those would be the only 2 that would come into the home. Mom and Dad would be staying at home, and hopefully they would be watching the kids so that Mr. and Mrs. Buyer can come in on their own and minimize the exposure to your home, and those are the only folks that are there. Okay. We're also going to ask that either the visitors remove their footwear, or they use some sort of a shoe covering. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and supply both gloves and booties for folks at the front door for them to put on before they even come into the home. In today's world, we're also asked to go ahead and wear masks. And so we would expect that they would all arrive with their mask on. We'll ask the buyers to either... I'm sorry, what's that?
And if they don't bring their own masks?
I will carry a couple of extra masks with me to ensure that we have folks that are they're covered. And if in the case that there aren't masks available, we're going to have to reschedule that showing. Okay, we want to make sure that we are doing all of our due diligence to make it safe for the buyers to be in your home and for you to return to the home after the showing. And to that, we're also going to ask the buyers not to touch anything in the home because you've already prepped the home for the doors are open, so they don't need to. And in some cases, we'll actually give them a Lysol wipe so that they can put that in their hand, and we can clean as we go as well. So we'll try that as well. But they will have gloves and or wipes as well. Once the showing is over, I'll actually be going back through the home to ensure that we've sanitized and shut the lights off and the windows. I will also have booties on, my gloves, my mask, and I will go through and make sure that everything that I have touched has been sanitized and that the home is locked up before I leave. Any questions there?
Yes. Will you be watching the buyers? Does safe distancing apply?
All of that will apply, yes. So as they're putting their booties on, I will go ahead and make sure that they understand the social distancing. They've got to stay away from, their buyer agent. If they have their own agent, then they will have to have a safe distance between themselves and the buyer agent, and as well as a safe distance from myself. And we can talk about whether it makes actually sense for me to wait outside in the driveway and then go through and sanitize afterwards, or if I'm going to be in the home and a safe distance from all of those coming in, but certainly within eyeshot and earshot.
I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with you not being in the house
It's-
to watch over things.
Yep, not a problem. That absolutely is your choice, and I'd be happy to be inside, and I'll make sure I review all of those social distancing rules before we even enter the home, and I will be there and on location while the buyers are walking through the property.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then just some of the tips that we talked about the other day that I'll review real quick. And your home has already been staged beautifully, but just a reminder, we're looking to have everything decluttered. We want to make sure that we get things organized, clean out, the closets. Those doors that you're opening obviously want to show really well and organized. Make sure you depersonalize so that some of the family photos come down. And then we want to make sure you freshen the kitchen. So all of the, the beautiful stainless steel that's in the kitchen needs to be cleaned and shiny and beautiful, just as I saw it the other day. Make sure that you go through the home and take a look at all of the light bulbs in the home, that they're all operating, none of them are burned out, and that all of the casings for the lights have all been cleaned out and shine and show the best that they possibly can during any visits. We talked the other day as we were walking through, make sure those minor repairs are done before we do professional photography and begin the showing. And that'll give you a couple weeks to do that while I organize, a professional photographer to come in and whatnot. You didn't have much that needed to be done in your home, but there were a couple of touch-up places that we had talked about. Some of the space we talked about as well, as you can create a new look by having some pillows, some throws, some of those types of things in the living room, and it'll give it that nice, light, new, crisp look. And of course, we clean. And we talked about the refreshing your walls and your ceiling, and then your curb appeal. Just take a look around at the yard and make sure everything is neat and orderly. And then some of the things that we're looking to, and this says getting ready to for the professional photography, but I always recommend that how we actually stage our home for the professional photography is exactly as the same that we're going to stage our home for every showing. And so I'll send these off to you so you can look at the particulars here and what we're talking about. And I'm happy to discuss these at any length that you would like to discuss.
Okay.
So that's what I have for you today, Teri. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you?
What's your commission? How much do I have to pay you?
So our commission is 5%, and that comes right off the proceeds at the closing, and those will be taken care of by the title company after they go through and do all the numbers for everybody. That check will be paid out at closing.
Smith Realty here in York said that they would do it for 4%.
I'm sure that they would, and there are some companies out there that definitely will do it for less. So I would encourage you, however, to make sure that you take a look at the listing piece that I sent over to you yesterday, as well as all the information that's included here, and do a one-on-one comparison with Smith Real Estate and see if they're actually willing to offer all of what we offer, both the marketing and in the environment that we're in, all of the safety precautions. And I can guarantee you that at the end of the day, our list of both our safety precautions and our marketing will be far longer than what's being offered out there in the common marketplace. And I know that you'll agree at the end of the day, we're well worth that 5% and what we can bring to you for both the exposure and the comfort of the safety that we'll bring to the table.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you have any questions after you've reviewed that list, please give me a call back. I'd love to discuss it with you in more detail.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
Anything else for questions today?
No, we'll probably be making our decision in, 4 or 5 days.
Great. Thank you. So then in 4 or 5 days brings us to, just about the middle of the weekend. Maybe what I'll do is drop you a line on Monday and we can chat about the direction that you've decided. Of course, in those 4 or 5 days, as you're chatting about it and have more questions, feel free. You have all my contact information. Text, email, give me a call. I'm happy to discuss any of those questions to make sure that you have really good, solid information to make that decision. And Teri, I just wanted to thank you for your time today and allowing me to do this for you and your family. And I know that Better Homes and Gardens, the Masiello Group, will do absolutely spectacular job on your beautiful home. We'll get it marketed and we'll get it sold for you.
Well, thank you. I certainly feel better just knowing how the process is going to go and alleviating some of our fear for the virus. So I will look forward to hearing from you on Monday.
Excellent. I'll get an email out with all of these documents today. Take care, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Karen, do we have some questions?
We do have some questions. If a listing client who works in a hospital as a nurse, are we obligated to mention this to the buyer's representatives or the realtor?
So now we will get into a little bit different, and I'm glad you're on the line, Karen, because there's a little difference between Maine and New Hampshire and what you owe for fiduciary duties to your buyer client in both states. So if it is your buyer client and you have that information and you know that information, I would share that information because we owe that to them. If they are a customer, we don't owe that information to them. That would be information that they would have to find out on their own. And certainly if you are a listing agent and you've got a co-broke in there and on that property, that would be a question that I would have pre-asked my seller. So I understand you're a nurse and you're working in the ER and with folks that have potentially COVID-19. Are you comfortable with me giving that information out? And so if they are not comfortable giving that information out, there is, then in the state of Maine, we would not be doing dual agency because I would not be able to tell a client that information because it's not directly related to the property, seemingly. So I would not do dual agency so that I didn't have to disclose that information. Karen, how would you handle that in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I don't know what the if there's any written law or rule in that regard. Maybe some other people on the call could help me out on that. But I personally, I would need to ask permission of my client to mention that. But again, whether I'm obligated by law to disclose that, I'm not sure.
And the other, it's a great question because you also have all the HIPAA laws out there, right? That we're not supposed to be disclosing anyone's health, issues or concerns. And it may not be. They may not be a carrier of COVID-19 either. And so I think it's a great question. And I think that's something that we, probably ought to put on our list for some research to be done. So thank you for whomever asked it. We'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, one more question. Will we be able
Rebecca,
to?
I think right when you say, sorry, hello?
Yeah.
Rebecca, I think you're right on when you say we have to watch out for HIPAA laws. I also think that we should run this by Jim, but I do know that if somebody has AIDS in a house, we don't have to disclose that. So I would think that we wouldn't have to, but I think that's probably a legal question. But as always, if we are asked, we have to tell the truth. So if somebody says, oh, I saw a nurse's hat or uniform in there, are they a nurse? We have to tell them, yes, they are.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jean. I appreciate that.
Then another question, will we be able to print these exact pages so that we can see the order and assess the logic of that order for our own presentation? I like the simplicity of this presentation as well as your commentary. Thank you.
So the first section, I think there are 13 pages in total, and I think the first 8 pages had to do with the CMA, and those come right out of Toolkit. And again, you can put those in any order. I stripped off the price adjustment page because I don't want to focus on that when we're doing the CMA. So I take that, I put it in my folder. That doesn't need to be the focus of the conversation. And then what I did was I added all of the last, I guess that would be 5 pages, maybe 6 pages on how we're going to show in this environment to my CMA piece. And that actually came from, Brittany did that piece for me. Those are pages that the marketing group have done, and they're out on our COVID-19. And then what Brittany did was she personalized it for us. and added my picture to it. So it all flowed. It all looked like I brought that out of the same place. In fact, I didn't. And so Brittany was kind enough. And in fact, Brittany emailed everybody in the Seacoast region and the York County region, if you want one of these done, please let me know and I can personalize it for you. I just took her up on that offer. So Brittany in our area, I see there are some folks that are outside of the York County or Seacoast. So Brittany out of the Hampton office, I believe, Karen, is where she's from. And she may be able to work with your business support specialist to do exactly the same thing. Karen is unmuting herself because I think we have more questions.
We do have another question. I am listing a condo that is a nurse. If she agrees to disclose, should I have buyers that go through sign something that I disclose that fact?
Again, I think that that gets back to Jean's comment, and we really need to run that by legal. So they're really good questions, and I'm glad that you guys are asking these, because let's get all those good questions out and ferret them out and get you answers so that if you run across that either at a showing or during a CMA, you've got good answers for that. So we will ask that. So buyer disclosure, I'm adding to the list right now. This is great stuff. Thank you very much.
Oh,
What else do you have here?
Nope, I guess that was it. I'm sorry. Maybe I missed something. Oh, a new message, but I don't see it. Hold on. Okay. I would like to have the entire package, including the order and pages that you use from Toolkit.
And who is that from? And I'll make sure they get it.
That's from Catherine Comstock, I believe. And I had a question. So I know you focused a lot on procedures for safety due to COVID-19. In that CMA also, do you have your marketing plan? But I think I just answered my own question because you sent the pre-listing ebook to them, which had the market plan in it.
Correct. Okay. Yes. And so that, you know, at a minimum 24 hours in advance of the CMA, we're recommending you send that out. You know, in days gone by, I've seen agents that have actually either had it delivered, FedEx, something like that. In today's world, I think, you know, the email is probably the best, most efficient way to get it to them. You may want to do it a couple of days in advance as well. So I'll let you decide on that.
And would you ask them, you know, would you bring it up at all? Did you see it? What do you think of the marketing plan? Do you address that at all?
So yeah, you know, I didn't in this particular one because the conversation didn't go in that direction. But it's no harm in asking that question. Did you have any questions on the pre-listing ebook that I sent? And I did have that queued up and ready to go. So if they'd said on page 3, I have a question, I would have stopped sharing my CMA and immediately brought the pre-listing one up, gone right to 3 and, you know, page 3, and then reviewed that question with them.
Rebecca, when we did the role play last week, Rebecca actually sent me a copy of the tax card so I could look at the house. And I didn't pull any comps or anything, obviously, because I was going to be the consumer. But I actually came in at 435. Like, I was almost hoping I'd come in high and she'd have to explain that, or, you know, but I came in right in the middle of where she was.
Which ends up being helpful, but yes, there's another whole discussion on that, right? If my numbers are low.
Yeah.
Other questions? I believe we'll actually have a list of all the names of the participants today, and we'll go ahead and email this out to everyone, both the tips as well as the presentation itself. So you all have that. We've just got to find, you know, the list. And that's what we have today. So feedback would be great. Feel free to send it along to rman@masiello.com. And if you have other role-playing activities you'd like to see us do, we'd be happy to do it. Teri is a great consumer, and so we'd be happy to bring these to you as much as you need. We're all in. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.